Okay, this video is going to explain the first question on the review guide for the final. And the first question on the review guide, and you've got a copy of this, made it available in Canvas. It says a local newspaper has a fixed production cost of $70 per edition and a marginal printing cost of 40 cents per copy. And it also says the newspaper is selling for 50 cents a copy. Then it asks two questions. Write the cost function, C of X. It tells you what to name the function for producing X number of copies of the newspaper. And then finally, wants you to use that function to calculate what the cost would be if they sold 1,000 copies. So we're just going to run through that. This problem kind of sets you up for some of the next problems, which have to do with linear programming. So what you're seeing is you're having to extract a certain part of the data out of this, but you don't necessarily use everything the problem gives you, and that's probably unusual. Usually when you're dealing with a word problem, you're trying to figure out how to use every little bit of information, and that's not the case with this. So let's break it down. First of all, let's start off with the fixed production cost. So the fixed, and we don't care if it's a production cost or if it's anything else, it's a fixed cost, and it's 70 bucks. And what you really want to take away from that, it just means that's one time. Okay, they pay the 70 bucks, and then they don't have to pay that till the next time they want to run an edition of newspapers. So it's kind of like when you get into a taxi cab. There's a one-time fee for when the guy just puts the flag up. And once that flag's up, then it starts ticking off the minutes. Well, that flag, or the miles sometimes, that flag is usually, there's a price for just doing that. In other words, it might be like $5 just no matter what, even if you just get out of the cab. So it's kind of like a minimum fixed cost. That's what that $70 is. It's a one-time deal. And then it says marginal printing cost of 40 cents per copy. Don't worry about the word marginal. It's just another word that it's an adjective, so don't worry about the type of cost. Just know that the cost is 40 cents per copy, and they write it in the problem like this: $0.40. Okay, so two questions are: write the cost function C of X for producing X copies of the newspaper. Okay, so if we take these in order, our cost using an input of X number of papers, so X represents how many papers we're going to produce. Okay, well, it costs us 70 bucks right off the bat. Basically, that's going to the printer and saying, hey, I want you to fire up the press and make me some copies, and he says fine, but it's 70 bucks just to get me in the door and get me to turn on the switch, and then we'll talk price per copy after that, and that's what's going on here. So we're going to have the 70 plus 0.40, and that's going to be times every copy of paper you want. So 0.40 times X. Now typically you would see this written the other way around. You'd see the 0.40x plus 70. This would be your slope. This would be your y-intercept. But this works, and it takes the information in order. This is one time. It's only going to happen once, right? We're not multiplying the 70 by anything. So it's 70 plus 40 cents times every copy of the paper you make. So if you make 5 million copies, you have to multiply that times 40 cents, add 70 to it, and that's what it's going to cost you to produce these papers. Now, the problem does go on to say that the newspaper is selling for 50 cents a copy. Well, that's good news. Hopefully, they can sell enough papers to make a profit at some point, but you don't need to use that data. They just want to know what it's going to cost. They're not looking for profit. So what we would want to do to make profit function would be to take that 50 cents a copy and then subtract off the cost, and that would be our profit. But they're not asking for profit, okay? They're not asking for income. which would be 50 cents times the X. They're just asking for what does it cost. And so you can you just ignore that 50 cents per copy for what it's selling for. They're not asking about it. So this is the answer to part A. C of X is equal to 70, your one-time recurring fee, plus 40 cents times the number of papers that you want to produce. In part B, it says, hey, what if we wanted to produce 1,000 copies? Actually, it says, what would the cost be if they sold 1,000 copies? I wish they'd worded the question a little differently and said, what would the cost be to produce 1,000 copies? Because the printer is going to charge you for 1,000 copies, whether you sell them all or not. It's how many they produce. But anyway, just basically use the function you created up here, but you're going to replace the X with 1,000. Likewise, you're going to do it over here. Okay, so what C of 1,000, or the cost of printing 1,000 newspapers, is equal to 70 plus 0.40 times 1,000. Okay? So now it's just a matter of doing the math. C of 1,000. We'll leave the 70 for now. Let's just do this multiplication. And 40 times 1,000, we're just going to move this decimal 3 places. We got 3 zeros, so multiplying by 1,000. You can do this in a calculator. Either way, you're going to get 400. Now we just add the 2. And if we want to produce 1,000 newspapers, it's going to cost us $470. And that's part A and part B of the first question. I certainly don't expect it to take you 7 minutes, which is how this video is running, to get this problem done. What I want you to recognize is that you've got a fixed cost, you've got a recurring cost, set up the equation, crunch it out, and hopefully you won't spend any more than a minute or two on this first problem, and save your time for some of the other problems that do take a little bit more time.